Today I will be sharing 7 of my family's all-time favorite dinners, either using beans or rice. These dinners are affordable, but yet they are still bursting with immense flavor. Let's get to my kitchen and let's get to cooking. To kick us off today, we are making this chicken, black bean, and rice casserole. It is so affordable, but yet so delicious. To a greased baking dish, add in your 2 tablespoons of melted butter, then add in 1/4 cup of salsa. Next, you're going to add in 1 cup of beef broth, chicken broth, or veggie broth. Really, either one will work. Next, add in 1 cup of uncooked white rice, then a 15-ounce can of drained and rinsed black beans. Next, add in 10 ounces of red enchilada sauce. This is also a dump recipe, so it's extra easy to make. Now you'll add in between 2 to 4 chicken breasts. Of course, add in more for more people, add in less for less people. Then about 1.5 tablespoons of taco seasoning. Give this a stir to kind of get the chicken coated in the seasoning and everything mixed up well. Cover this tightly with foil and bake it in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 55 minutes. Once the cooking time's up, remove the foil, cover it with cheese, and bake it for 15 more minutes. This dinner is so good. I absolutely love meal prepping it. My husband eats it for lunch often. It is just super affordable with the rice and beans in it, but yet it is still bursting with so much great flavor. You absolutely need to try this one. Top it with your favorite taco toppings. Now we're getting started on this chicken and wild rice casserole, and if you're a wild rice fan like I am, you will absolutely love this one. So spray a 9x13 baking dish with nonstick spray. Now add in about 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. Add in a tablespoon of minced garlic along with a tablespoon of olive oil, then 1/4 of a yellow onion that you diced. Next, add in about 1.5 cups of uncooked wild rice. This is the brand I use. I really do like this brand. I do find that it cooks up really nicely, and it is just like a nice mix of wild rice. Now I'm adding in my uncooked orzo. It's 1/2 cup of that. Then add in your seasonings. There's a lot of seasonings, but this is so good. A teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1/2 teaspoon of dried rosemary, 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and then 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder. After that, add in your 2 ribs of celery. Go ahead and slice them. Then add in 2 large carrots. Dice those up. Then you're going to add in about 3 1/4 cup of chicken broth. Give this a stir to kind of mix everything together. Then you're going to place about 6 tablespoons of sliced butter all over the top. The butter is going to add a little bit of rich flavor. Cover this tightly with foil and bake this in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 65 minutes. After the cooking time is up, you're going to remove this from the oven, remove the foil, and you're going to bake it for about 20 more minutes or until that wild rice and orzo are tender. Wild rice is often considered the healthiest rice you could cook with just because there's so much to it. I've been trying to cook with it more often, and it is still fairly affordable, and a little bit of wild rice goes a long way. This meal is so delicious. It is so herby. That chicken is nice and tender and juicy. This one is 10 out of 10. Now we're getting started on the Spanish rice with pinto beans, and this one is for all of my meatless meal friends. This one's a meatless meal. So to a pan on the stove, add in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Once your oil's hot, add in a tablespoon of minced garlic, 1/4 of a yellow onion that's diced, and a green bell pepper. Green bell peppers tend to be the least expensive bell peppers at the store just because they're considered the least mature. But after that, cook together for about 5 minutes. I'm just adding in 2 cups of uncooked white rice. After that, add in your seasoning. So 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of paprika, 2 teaspoons of chili powder, a teaspoon of cumin, and then 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and onion powder. You're going to give this a good stir. Let it cook together for about a minute. This is considered an extreme budget meal. This one is very affordable to throw together. A couple weeks ago, I made a full month of extreme budget meals for under $50. It was right at $45. So if you haven't seen it yet, I do have it linked below. You definitely need to check that video out. I've never done anything like that in the past, so I'm excited for you to see it. But after the cooking time is up, I added in 1/2 cup of tomato sauce, 1/2 cup of salsa, 2.5 cups of vegetable broth, 2 15-ounce cans of drained and rinsed pinto beans. Give this a stir, let it simmer and cook together for about 20 minutes covered. You do want to stir it occasionally while it's cooking just so the rice doesn't burn to the bottom of your pot. But once your rice is fluffy, you could stir in a half a cup of shredded cheddar cheese if you're a cheese fan like me, but once your cheese is melty, you could serve this up. Here's what it looks like plated up. Go ahead and top yours with your favorite taco toppings. We topped ours with a little bit of lime, parsley, just to make it look pretty, and some more cheese. This is so delicious. It makes for so much food. You could always double it for more people or half it for less people if you'd like, but this is such a great meatless meal. Now we are making this one pot Mexican quinoa, and this one is for all of my meatless meal friends. To a large pot on the stove, add in a tablespoon of olive oil. Once the oil is hot, add in a diced yellow onion and 1 jalapeno. If you're not a jalapeno fan, you could add in a bell pepper or add nothing in as a substitute. Then add in 1 cup of quinoa after those veggies are softened. Then add in 1 cup of chicken broth, followed by a 14-ounce can of fire roasted diced tomatoes. Then a 15-ounce can of drained and rinsed black beans, a 14-ounce can of corn, then a half a teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, and a half a teaspoon of pepper. This recipe is so easy to make. Give it a stir and let this simmer covered for about 18 to 22 minutes, or until the quinoa is like to the tenderness that you like it to be. Also, I do want to let you know you could add different beans in this, you could add different veggies in this, you could really make it your own. You could also take things away. You will also find this recipe on page 112 in my cookbook. It's in the one pot section, and I have been making this recipe for years and years. It's just so yummy. Now add in the juice from a half of a lime. Give this a really good stir. Then you could serve it up. We topped ours with a little bit of cheese, sour cream, cilantro, and lime, but top yours with anything that you'd like to. This is also super good in like enchiladas, so this could be like in an enchilada filling. It is absolutely delicious. My little ones love it. This is just like a perfect dinner to throw together. It has simple steps and minimal ingredients. By making this rice and beef dish. So to the pan on my stove, I added in 1 pound of ground beef. Next, I'll toss in a tablespoon of minced garlic, followed by 1 yellow onion that I diced. I broke that ground beef up with my meat masher, and next I'm going to add in our seasonings. So for the seasonings, toss in a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of paprika, and a teaspoon of oregano. Cook the ground beef through at this point. This recipe is so simple. Now that our ground beef is cooked through, I added in my 2 cups of uncooked rinsed jasmine rice, or you could use white rice, along with 3.5 cups of beef broth, or you could use veggie broth, a 12-ounce frozen bag of broccoli, and then 1 can of rotel. Give this a really good stir and bring this up to a simmer, and let this simmer covered on your stove for about 20 to 22 minutes. You do want to stir this occasionally while it's simmering, just because you don't want the rice to stick to the bottom of your pan. And if the liquid line does get too low while this is simmering, just feel free to add in about half a cup more water at a time until your rice gets nice and tender. Now that our rice is nice, fluffy, and tender, I'm going to add in 1 cup of shredded Colby Jack cheese. I gave this a stir, let the cheese melt down, and then it's time to serve it up. Here's my plate of food. We actually had extended family over on this night when I made this meal, and they thought it was absolutely delicious, they told me, and I believed them because my family really enjoys this meal too. Even my little toddler loves this one. Now we're making this wonderful no-peak pork chop casserole. So I have a 9x13 baking dish right here that I sprayed with nonstick spray. I'm adding in 1 can of cream of chicken soup along with a can of cream of mushroom soup. I'm using the cream of mushroom soup with roasted garlic. I just think it adds so much great flavor, and I recommend you doing that, but if you can't find that at your store, normal cream of mushroom soup will work. Next, I added in 2 cups of chicken broth and a 1.5 cups of uncooked cooked jasmine rice, or you could use white rice if you prefer. Give this a really good whisk to incorporate the ingredients together. Now you're going to want to add in a half a pack of Lipton onion soup mix. Just sprinkle that on top and then stir this again. That's pretty much all the seasonings we're going to add, just that packet of soup mix, just because it really does add a lot of great flavor. Now for the pork chops, I'm using 4 boneless pork chops and just place them right on top of the casserole. Make sure they're not overlapping, and then you're going to want to sprinkle the other half of the Lipton onion soup mix over the top of the pork chops. This gives them wonderful flavor. Cover this with foil and bake this in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 75 minutes, or until the rice is fluffy and the pork chops are tender. Here's my plate of food. This is not your average pork chop dinner. These are not your basic hockey puck dry pork chops. These pork chops are so tender and so delicious. My family absolutely devours this dinner, and that rice is perfectly fluffy. I did serve this alongside of some steamed carrots. Now we are getting started on this tamale casserole. So into this big pan on my stove, I'm adding in a pound of ground beef. Next, I'm going to add in 1 diced yellow onion. Just break that ground beef up and cook it through. Once you do have your ground beef completely cooked through, you do want to remove any excess grease from your pan. My favorite way to do so is just wiggling a paper towel around in there until it is absorbed. Now you're going to want to just remove this from the heat and add this ground beef onion mixture into a large bowl. Next, add in 1 drained and rinsed can of pinto beans, or you could use black beans or any beans that you like. Also a drained can of corn along with 1/3 cup of water. Now I'm going to add in 1 box of Jiffy corn muffin mix. Now add in 1 can of red enchilada sauce, or you could use green enchilada sauce, whatever your favorite is. For the seasonings, I'm going to add in a teaspoon of all of these seasonings: oregano, salt, pepper, chili powder, cumin, onion powder, and garlic powder, or you could add in a couple tablespoons of taco seasoning if you don't have these seasonings on hand. Give this a really good stir. I have a 9x13 baking dish right here. I'm spraying it with a nonstick spray, then add that casserole right in there. Spread the casserole out, and then I'm going to sprinkle 1 cup of Mexican style cheese over the top. If you're not a cheese fan, just don't add the cheese. This will bake in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes, or until the center has set. Here's my plate of food. Just go ahead and top yours with anything that you love. We topped ours with a little bit of sour cream, diced tomato, onion, and lime. This is so flavorful and so good. This casserole absolutely is like fantastically easy to throw together. You absolutely will love this one as much as we do. I would really love to have you over here, so make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.